and she had been suffering for a very long time from mental illness. She had been reaching out for help. She had been seeing doctors, and these doctors just like kept giving her more meds but not taking her off her old meds. I think she was on, I don't know, 9 meds or something. And if you've ever been down that road before, you know you're just a guinea pig. They just keep throwing meds at you, and you'll go in and complain about something and they'll like double your meds. It's a very weird, wild, wild west out there as far as mental meds go. Anyway, she was not getting better. She did not feel safe with her children. She had a lot of intrusive thoughts and apparently like psychosis, which her husband was aware of, okay? Now, supposedly that day, he went out to get food, and that's when she did it. But there is a growing theory that the husband did it. This is just a theory. And that he is Chris Watts 2.0. Because people are saying, for one, why would you leave, somebody that has these thoughts home with the kids? And to that, I think, okay, well, maybe he thought, hey, it's just going to be 20 minutes or something. Maybe. Because he did start working from home because she was having these thoughts. So it seems like on the surface, oh, he's a good guy, right? But when he called the cops, he was out in the yard with Lindsay. He hadn't even been in to look at the kids yet. And, as a parent, if I knew my wife or my whoever was having those thoughts and then I came home and saw my wife in the yard, I would be calling 911 as I was checking on my kids. The only reason to not go in and look and see what's going on with the kids, you have an infant, a toddler, and a 5-year-old, would be if you knew what was going on in there, right? Or you knew what had happened in there. I tend to agree with that. I'd be like, okay, I'm calling 911. I need to go check on these kids. Like, what has happened? I need the big picture. She did kind of do some sort of confession when the cops got there. I think she said something like, what have I done? Or what did I can't remember, but it was kind of a confession. But again, she was very out of her mind as well. And the theory is that either he possibly did it knowing that she would get the blame, because they're pretty sure, the general public is pretty sure that he was cheating, because he married soon, like almost immediately after, within a couple months, I think he remarried a woman from New York City, and he had been visiting New York City, or some part of New York, I can't remember. And this lady that he married looks strangely just like Lindsay Clancy. So one of the theories is that like he did it himself and he knew she was so out of her mind that she wouldn't even be able to know what happened. So he would get away with it. Or that he knew this was inevitable and he was just waiting for it to happen and neglecting to manage the situation because it would work out for him. If she did do it, he would have, his way out. Apparently, some people have never heard of just like divorce or something with my mic because my hat kept hitting it. I did watch a clip of him at a marathon. He ran a marathon in the name of his kids. And the interviewer, pulled him aside at this marathon and was like, wow, you really did it. How are you feeling? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, I did this for the kids. And they asked him a couple questions and he described his kids as very good people. They had a lot of friends. Very good people that had a lot of friends. That is something you would say about a coworker that you barely knew. And I understand being awkward. Like, oh, wait, I have a 5-year-old right now, and there's no way I would describe him as a good person with a lot of friends. He does seem very odd and detached, but I mean, maybe that's his mechanism for not thinking about it as much. I don't know. And you would hate to think if he didn't do it and he's suffering. This is just another shrimp on the Barbie, this it would be terrible. But it is a very publicized case, and there will be theories that come with that. Now, because we're talking about this, and I want you to take note that Lindsay Clancy's medical history and mental illness, which is your medical history, is heavily involved in this case. Her doctors are talking, her character witnesses are talking. Mental illness is the overarching theme of this whole case, right? Well, a couple years ago, same judge. Okay, so this is Plymouth, Massachusetts is where this is happening. A mother convicted of brutally killing her 2 sons will get a new trial after Massachusetts Supreme Court ruled the jury never saw evidence related to her mental illness. So this same judge took a very similar case. And in this case, in a unanimous ruling issued on Thursday, the state's highest court stated that Latarsha Sanders, 51, was entitled to a new trial, writing in its opinion, "We hold that the exclusion of the defendant's relevant medical records relating to the diagnosis or treatment of mental illness constituted prejudicial error, and as a result, the defendant is entitled a new trial." Sanders was found guilty of first-degree murder in 2022 in connection with the deaths of 2 of her sons, 8-year-old Edson Marlon Brito and 5-year-old Layson Brito. Now, Latarsha is black. So, why would this judge say that it's important to hear Lindsay Clancy's mental illness history, but not Latarsha's? According to the facts outlined in the opinion, Sanders had no documented history of mental illness before the boys were found dead, but in the days leading up to their deaths, her family members said that her appearance and behavior changed. Sanders was disheveled, and she said she needed to protect Marlon and Layson from their grandmother and her older sister, Shalia, because she feared that they would poison the children. So clearly, she's going into some form of psychosis, and that the witnesses should have been able to discuss this. Also, let's not forget that seeing doctors for your mental illness is a privilege. Being able to shell out a couple $100 a visit is a privilege. But I'm on medication myself. I take a low dose of, a really common one, and it works for me. But when I was off, let me tell you, I had a lot of postpartum depression with my last. And probably with my other kids too. I just masked it with alcohol back then. But I was in the absolute pits. Not psychosis, but definitely a heavy, dark cloud of depression. It does something to your hormones, and then just the duty of it, the relentlessness of it, the duty of it, the messes, that's being socially starved, while you're home. It can do some awful things to your brain. It's great too, but you have to really keep an eye on where your head is at and try to get help. Anyway, that was a tangent, but I'm not going to get into the gritty details. But I do think that we need to bring attention to this case, and I'm glad that this person is getting a retrial. And then we've got the Perez Hilton. Oh my god, this was... Okay, I did not see this. I don't want to see this. I don't even want to see still images of this, but if you don't know who Perez Hilton is, he is his reportings, right? Which, yeah, to an extent I get, but I also think that is a given with fame. The fame and the money comes these, the celebrity tea, the gossip, and these gossip news anchors, And a couple years ago, Perez had said he was gonna try to be nicer and not be a bully, and I think, from what I gather, he did work on that a lot. I guess he was living in Vegas with his mother. He has 3 biological children. They are surrogates. Okay, so he was living in Las Vegas with his mother. I guess he's a mama's boy, And his mom did not like it in Vegas, so they moved back to Miami, which is where he grew up. And he had just been in the hospital with sepsis in Vegas before their move. So they moved back to Miami, and he was on live. And he did a lot of, now you have to be careful because YouTube does not like this stuff, but he did a lot of injury live. And I guess it was just a absolute nightmare. And it went on for like 30 minutes as his subscribers, his fans, his members, I don't know, were trying to get information so that they could call the authorities. And eventually they did, but it was like 30 minutes into the live when authorities got there and kind of saved him. There's some information that's conflicting, like were his kids home or not. Apparently his kids had left, I guess with an adult, but I'm like, why didn't that adult call the cops? But we don't know that they didn't. But if they did, then why did it take 30 minutes? Like, it's Miami, right? It's not some rural town. Like, 30 minutes is a stretch. There are theories that it was the sepsis because you can get into like a psychotic episode, I guess, after sepsis, but from what I gather, that would have had to happen within a couple days to weeks after sepsis, and here we are sitting at a couple months. So doesn't that rule it out? I watched a doctor talk about their theory was that he was trying a new mental health medication. So now we're in that guinea pig Wild West territory again, if that was the case. Because I guess he had been struggling with his mental health. And, he could have seeked out some medication for that and been trying a new one. You have to get a new doctor when you move in. Maybe that doctor gave him. There was a med that this specific doctor was talking about that does have a higher percentage of having that happen. And I'm like, what a freaking nightmare. You go to the doctor in hopes that, like, okay, this is going to get better. And then things get 100 times worse. And the way the doctor was talking about it, it could take 3 weeks to 3 months for your brain to get better. was like, we don't get along, but I do hope he gets better. But then Sloan was talking about after, he's like, yeah, he seems to kind of resent his kids. And I'm like, now's not the time, Sloan. And I didn't know, what he's talking about, but he showed a clip of Perez Hilton talking about, he's like, I'm not going to leave any money for my kids. He goes, I'm doing a lot right now. I have changed my diva lifestyle to fit my kids' financial needs at the moment. So I don't get to go do this and that. I'm putting this money into my kids. And so then, my kids, when they get older, have to make their own way with what I've done for them. Not with just a bunch of money that I'm giving them. And, Sloan's not a parent. So I don't think that maybe he did think of that as resentment. I think that Perez was just saying, like, I'm going to go on my vacations.